In today's video, let's practice some sample questions for your PRINCE2 Foundation Exam. Hi, I am Ray and I am an authorized trainer for PRINCE2 Certification, and I have helped many aspiring project managers in their careers to become certified project managers. Now in this video today, we will be solving some medium to high difficulty level PRINCE2 Foundation Exam questions, which will help you firstly to understand the genuine look and feel of the PRINCE2 Foundation level exam questions if you are planning to write the exam anytime soon, and secondly, if you are preparing for the PRINCE2 exam already, you might use today's session to assess how well you are prepared for the exam. So get a pen and a paper and let's get started with question number 1.
Right, so question number 1, the drill will remain the same as per the previous sessions that we have done over the previous months. So you can pause the video here and try to answer the question first before we solve this together. Right, so let's get started. So this question is basically testing your understanding of a very specific technique in PRINCE2, which is the business case management technique, right? So the technique, if you have read your PRINCE2 manual, has 4 distinct steps: develop, check, maintain, and confirm. Now the question zeroes in on the maintain step and asks you to identify how the business case is kept alive and relevant throughout the project lifecycle. So let's walk through the options one by one. So option A, by writing a detailed business case during the initiation stage. Now, think about it. Writing a detailed business case once during initiation, and then do you want to leave it all alone? Okay, that's not maintenance at all, right? So that is just writing a document and filing it away for later use or later reference. Okay, it is not a living document. However, in real life project, imagine that you are 3 stages into a large infrastructure project and the costs have gone up significantly. Now, if you only wrote the business case once during initiation and your project board is not aware of these changes that has already happened, it is a clear disconnect, right? So they have no updated view of whether the project still makes commercial sense. And for that reason, option A is an incorrect answer choice, because PRINCE2 is very clear that the business case should be written once, definitely during the initiation stage. However, it has to be maintained as the business case evolves, as the project progresses through its life cycle. And that is the reason why option A is an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option C. The project manager provided an updated business case to the business layer during the stage boundary process. Now, this one sounds plausible on the surface. However, there is a bit of truth that is buried here, right? Because the project manager does update the business case and the stage boundaries are important checkpoints. So we are not sort of debating on that. But if you look at this very, very closely, the business case is not handed to the business layer as if it was a one-way delivery, right? The project manager updates it with actual progress data. Let's say things like costs incurred, product delivered, benefits realized, and it is reviewed by the project board, okay? Not the business layer, which is one level up the project board. Also, and this is very important, the maintain step of the business case happens across all the stages, right? Not only at the stage boundaries, as we discussed whilst we were discussing the nuances of option A. So restricting it to just the stage boundary process is too narrow and should not be done in a typical PRINCE2 project. Okay, so that is why this option is also an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option D. By maintaining the benefits management approach document during the start of the controlling a stage process. Now that does not make sense at all, okay? Because the benefits management approach is a completely separate management product. It is part of the project initiation documentation or the PID, and it describes how and when benefits will be measured. So maintaining the benefits management approach is not the same as maintaining the business case. So that is why option D is also an incorrect answer choice. So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is by updating the business case during each management stage as actual costs are incurred. Now this is exactly what the PRINCE2 manual also tells us. The maintain step of the business case management technique means that the project manager keeps the business case current throughout the delivery stages. As the project moves forward, actual costs come in, benefits start to be realized, products get delivered, and risks evolve, and so does the business case, along with all those changing elements across the life cycle of the project. Okay, so all of that has a direct bearing on whether the project remains a worthwhile investment, and that links back, if you remember, to the first principle of PRINCE2 project, which is continued business justification. And for all those reasons, option B is the correct answer choice to this question.
Next, let's move on to question number 2.
Right, so question number 2, please pause the video and try to answer the question first before we solve this together. Right, so this question comes straight from the plans practice of PRINCE2, specifically from the section of the PRINCE2 manual, which talks about how plans enable understanding and communication. Okay, now the question is a which is not type of a question. Okay, which is very important for you to understand, because these type of questions are typically called negative type questions in the definition of the PRINCE2 types of questions, which you will get in your foundation exam. Now let's review the options one by one. Option C, the user's expectations of the products to be delivered and the benefits to be realized. Right, so this one is word for word from the PRINCE2 manual, which is good. Okay, so this is the first of the three perspectives. Think about it from a real world angle, that when a project team sits down to plan, the very first question is, what does the user actually want and what benefits they are expecting, right? So whether it is a new software system or a road construction or a product launch, the user's voice must be baked into the plan from day one. Okay, so option C is absolutely one of the three perspectives. So it stays in and we rule it out as the answer for this question, which is a negative type question, because if you see, the word not here is the key to identify such type of questions in your PRINCE2 Foundation exam. Let's look at option D, the project management team's assessment of the most effective approach to meet these expectations. Okay, now this is the second perspective, and again it is taken directly from the manual. Now once you know what the users want, someone has to figure out how to actually deliver it, right? That is the project management team's job. They assess the delivery approach, the sequencing of the work, the resources needed, and the risks involved. So if you think about it, this is really the how of the plans practice of PRINCE2, sitting right at the heart of any plan. Okay, and this is very much one of the three perspectives of project planning in PRINCE2. So option D is not our answer either. So let's look at option A, the business support for the project, including the commitment of funding, people, and resources. And this is the third perspective, straight from section 7.1.1 of your PRINCE2 7th edition. So if you think about it, even the best user expectations and the most carefully crafted delivery approach mean absolutely nothing if the business do not commit to the money, to the people, to the resources to make it happen, right? So in practice, imagine a project manager presenting a beautiful plan to the project board with no funding commitment behind it. Okay, so that plan is really worthless. The business perspective anchors the plan in a commercial and organizational reality. So option A is the third of the three perspectives of PRINCE2 planning, and hence it's not our answer for this question. So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is the business overview of benefits for the investing organization. Now, that might seem plausible on the surface, and after all, you might argue that PRINCE2 talks a lot about benefits and business justification. So, your instinct might be to say, yes, of course, the business overview of benefits is a part of planning, right? But here's the thing. So, if you look very carefully at how the manual actually defines the three perspectives, the business perspective and plans is specifically about support and commitment, meaning funding, people, and resources. It's not about providing a benefits overview, because benefits are captured and managed through the business case practice. Very, very important. Okay. And it is not through the three perspectives of creating a plan for a PRINCE2 project. And for that reason, option B is the one that does not belong to the three perspectives of PRINCE2 planning, and that makes it your correct answer choice to this negative type question.
I hope you are enjoying the session, right? Please press the like button if that's the case, and also make sure you subscribe to my channel Project Mastery with Ray if you wish to view more of such educational content. And now let's move on to question number 3.
Right, so question number 3, please pause the video and try to answer this question first before we solve this together. So this question is testing whether you know risk management products and crucially what each one actually stands for. So specifically it asks where you would look to find out whether the PRINCE2 risk management technique is being applied on a project. So it's all about understanding the difference between a document that describes how something will be done versus a document that records what has actually happened. So let's work through the options one by one. Option A, current stage plan. Now think about what a stage plan actually is, right? So it is a plan for sure. It tells you what products are going to be delivered in the current stage, what activities would be involved, who is doing what will it cost, and how long will it take, right? So it is essentially the detailed roadmap for the stage you are in right now. Now, does a roadmap tell you what risk management technique to use? Think about it. Of course, it does not, right? The stage plan might reference risk in terms of their impact on the state schedule, but it is not the place where you define or specify the risk management technique to be applied, okay? And that is why option A is an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option B, risk register. Now, this one might feel tempting to some of you, right? Because risk register sounds like it has got everything risk related in it, okay? But think about it carefully. What does a risk register actually do? It maintains a record of identified risks, their status, their probability, their impact, their response actions, and their history throughout the project. It is essentially a living document of all the risks you have identified. Now, here is the key distinction that the risk register records the risks themselves, okay? It does not tell you how risk management is going to work on the project from start to finish, okay? So in other words, the what is in the risk register and the how sits somewhere else entirely, okay? So option B is an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option D, project plan. Now this one doesn't really fit for sure, okay? Because the project plan is the high level plan covering the entire project. It shows the major products to be delivered, the stages, the timelines, the overall cost, and the key milestones. Like the stage plan, it might flag major risks that could affect the project timeline, but it is really, if you think about it, a planning document, right? Not a governance or management approach document. It tells you what you are going to do and when, and not how you are going to manage risk on a project from start to finish. And that is why option D is also an incorrect answer choice. And the correct answer to this question is option C, which is risk management approach. Because the risk management approach is the management product that describes exactly how risk will be managed on the project. And that includes the specific procedures, the techniques, the standards, and the responsibilities to be applied. So if the project decides to apply the PRINCE2 5-step risk management technique, which involves identifying the risks, assessing the risks, planning the risk mitigation actions, implementing those, and finally communicating the closure or the current or the mitigated status of the risks to the stakeholders, that decision or that entire life cycle is documented in the risk management approach. Equally, if the project is part of a larger program and the team decides to use a program-wide risk management technique instead of a specific project-wise, this is where you will also find that tailoring decision in terms of a PRINCE2 project risk management approach. And that is why option C is your correct answer choice.
Right, next, question number 4.
Right, so question number 4, the drill will remain the same. Please pause the video and try to answer the question first before we solve this together. So this question basically is testing your knowledge of the 4 steps within the PRINCE2 business case management technique. Develop, check, maintain, and confirm. So each step has a very specific role in the life cycle of the business case, and the exam loves to test whether you can clearly distinguish between them. Okay. However, please note that the key phrase for this question here is assesses whether the intended benefits have been or will be realized. Okay. And that wording is giving out a lot what you need to know to select the right answer choice. So let's go through the options one by one. Now, option C, develop. Now, the develop step is about building the business case in the first place, right? It starts back in the pre-project scenario when the project mandate arrives and triggers the starting up a project process. So at this point, the project team uses the mandate to develop the initial business justification, which gets documented as the outline business case inside the project brief. Then, during initiation, that outline business case gets developed further into a full business case. So if you see, the develop step is about creation, okay? It's not about assessment. So you are building the justification at this point and you are not yet asking that whether the benefits have been realized because the project has barely started, right? And hence option C is incorrect. Let's look at option D, check. Now the check step sounds a lot like assessment, right? And there is some truth to that for sure. I'm not denying that. However, please understand that during the check step, the project board reviews the business case at key decision points and most importantly at the stage boundaries to determine whether the project remains viable, desirable, and achievable. The project manager also checks the business case when assessing the impacts of risks and issues on the business justification. However, here is the critical difference, okay? The check step is asking, is the business case still holding up, okay? It is also asking, is the project still worth continuing? So it is basically, if you think about it, a forward-looking viability check at specific points during the project. It is not the same as going back after the project and asking that did those benefits actually happen or did those benefits actually got realized? Okay, because that is fundamentally a different question and definitely the check step does not answer it. And that is why option D is an incorrect answer choice. Now let's look at option A, maintain. So the maintain step is the project manager's ongoing job during the delivery stages, right? So think of it as keeping the business case alive and accurate. As the project progresses, actual costs come in, products get delivered, and some benefits might even start to be realized during the project itself. So the project manager updates the business case with all of this real progress data along with the latest forecasts for benefits and performance targets. So if you really think about it, maintain is about keeping the document current and up to date and relevant throughout the project. It is a data update job, figuratively speaking, which could be often done by project support officers. It might not need a project manager's involvement or oversight at all. Okay, and it is clearly not about standing back and formally assessing whether the intended benefits have been actually realized or not. And that is why option A is also an incorrect answer choice. So as many of you have rightly guessed, the correct answer to this question is option B, which is confirm. Okay, and here is what the confirm step is so special as part of this scenario which we are discussing. Okay, because it operates beyond the project life cycle. Very, very important, because after the project closes, the temporary organization, which is the project team, is disbanded, right? However, the benefits review work does not stop. Okay, the business, which is led by the senior user, picks up the accountability for conducting post-project benefits reviews. They look at the outcomes of the project delivered and ask whether those outcomes have actually generated the expected benefits. And where benefits were forecasted to be realized during the project itself, The stage boundary reviews are used to confirm whether those benefits were on track or not. Okay. And also, before we end this discussion, it is worth noting one important accountability here, okay, which is of the senior user. Okay, because the senior user is responsible for confirming that the forecasted benefits are realized or not realized or partially realized, etc., etc. Okay, so this responsibility can extend well beyond the life of the project itself. So option B is your correct answer choice to this question.
And finally, question number 5. I hope you are taking notes, okay? Because I'm sure that you are learning something new at least as part of your PRINCE2 exam preparation as part of today's session, right?
Right, so question number 5, please read the question and try to answer the question first before we solve this together. So this is a definition question from the issues practice of PRINCE2, okay, and it is testing something very specific, which is your ability to recognize the correct PRINCE2 term for a product that fails to meet its quality specifications. So if you read the PRINCE2 manual, it recognizes several distinct types of issues, each with a precise definition, and the exam regularly tests these definitions because candidates often mix them up. Okay, so let's go through each of the options one by one and be very clear about what belongs where. Option A, an event external to the project. Well, that does not make sense at all in the context of this question, okay? So if you think about it, an event external to the project is much closer to how you would describe sort of emergent type of risk in a project, okay? A risk in PRINCE2 is an uncertain event or a set of events that, if it occurs, will affect the achievements of the objectives, okay? And those kind of risks are often internal, might be external as well, and they come with a probability of occurrence. But a product failing to meet its quality specifications, that is not an external event for sure. That is something happening right inside your project at the delivery level when a product is being built or tested. So option A has nothing to do with product quality failures, and it's an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option B, a problem or concern. Now this one sits with the issues practice for sure, and if you have read the issues practice in your PRINCE2 manual, you might feel that this might be the correct answer choice, but here is the distinction. A problem in PRINCE2 is an issue with a immediate and negative impact on the project. However, a concern is an issue whose timelines and impacts still needs to be assessed. Very, very important distinction. Okay. Neither of these specifically describes a product failing to meet its quality specifications. Because if you think about it, a problem or a concern is a very, very broad category, right? It could be things such as a team member unexpectedly leaving, a key dependency which is slipping as part of your schedule, or a stakeholder raising an objection. Okay, so these are issues definitely with negative or uncertain impact, but they are not specifically about a product falling short of its quality standards, and that is why option B is very broad and it's too vague, and that is why it's an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option C, a business opportunity. Now, interestingly, business opportunity is actually listed as a type of issue in PRINCE2. Okay, and yes, that surprises a lot of project managers because in PRINCE2, issues are not just problems. Okay, they are unplanned events that require management action, and that definitely can include positive surprises as well. So, for example, a new technology becomes available mid-project that could significantly improve the product. Now, that is a business opportunity raised as an issue because it needs to be assessed and a decision made about whether to act on it. Okay. However, if you look at this question, it is asking specifically about a product that will not meet its quality specifications. Okay. Now, that definitely does not sound like a positive opportunity, right? And that is why option C is also a incorrect answer choice. So the correct answer to this question is option D, which is an off specification. So the PRINCE2 manual gives us the exact definition of off-specification, and it is quite concise, okay? And it says that an off-specification is a product that will not meet its quality specifications. Plain and simple, word for word, okay? Now, off-specifications most commonly occur when a supplier delivers a product that does not fully comply with what was documented in the product description. Now, here is something worth remembering, okay? An off specification can also arise when a required quality specification is found to be technically unachievable in practice, even with the best efforts, okay? And in both the cases, you have a gap between what was agreed in the approved baseline versus what actually has been delivered, okay? Now that, if you think about it, is not always something which is negative or not always something which is wrong, because if your actual project baseline is something which is very utopian, however the actual delivery is close to reality, there will always be a gap, and that gap is expected, and also that is not something which is negative, right? And that is why option D, which is an off specification, is your correct answer choice, and it's the only definition of a product not meeting its quality specification that precisely matches what is asked in the question.
I hope you found the session helpful. In case you are planning to prepare for the PRINCE2 exam and you wish to enroll in one of my training programs, please drop me an email and one of my team members will definitely reach out to you. I am Ray, an authorized trainer for PRINCE2 by PRINCE2 Cert, and I look forward to meet you again in the next video.